Guys, this house is even cheaper. The top floor is only 10,000 yuan for a unit. Just like Jack Ma said back in 2017, housing prices are as cheap as shallots. It's unbelievably affordable, and this is in Heilongjiang. The top floor is 10,000 yuan per unit. The fifth floor costs 15,000 or 20,000 yuan, and the first floor goes for 40,000 to 50,000 yuan. There's everything you need: schools, supermarkets, you name it. Nothing's missing. Back when prices were high, someone offered me over 300,000 yuan, but I didn't sell. Last year, I sold it for just 30,000. Most of the buildings were developed by real estate companies, with only a few resettlement buildings. These properties are less than 10 years old. There are fewer people but more buildings, so prices are low. Recently, Qixing coal mining residential area in Shuangyashan, Heilongjiang, a top-floor unit was listed for just 10,000 yuan. This sparked widespread discussion. On January 13, Chinese media interviewed a local property owner, Mr. Li. He explained that the housing surplus and population decline after the coal mines' decline have driven prices down. He said, "Here, renting is essentially free. You just pay heating and property management fees, which amount to less than 2,000 yuan. Shuangyashan is a small city with slower economic growth. It once thrived on coal but has struggled since the industry's decline. The Qixing mine residential buildings were developed years ago, with most being under 10 years old. However, population overflow and housing oversupply have caused prices to plummet." Some residents express skepticism about such low prices. Many believe that there must be a catch. They pointed out that top floor and upper floor units require year-round heating fees that cannot be suspended, and after several years, these fees could add up to the cost of a unit. Even if you don't live there, you still have to pay management fees. It's a financial trap. They added that the area's low population makes renting out properties nearly impossible, with many homes offered renting for free in exchange for covering heating and property fees. Others warned against jumping onto the bandwagon, saying that while the prices are tempting, the investment potential is almost non-existent. Buyers could face numerous risks and should proceed with caution. In the past, Hegang, a third-tier city in Heilongjiang, gained notoriety for its rock-bottom housing prices. Population and industrial decline caused property values to drop year after year. Houses selling for tens of thousands of yuan became common, yet even at such low prices, buyers were scarce, turning the city into a ghost town. This phenomenon is now referred to as a Hegang Effect when describing similar situations in other cities. In recent years, as economic growth slows and unemployment rises, this trend has spread beyond northern cities like Hegang. Many areas across China are now seeing housing markets heading in the same direction. According to media reports, at least 95 cities across China are experiencing the Hegang Effect, spreading across 25 provinces. In Zhangjiakou, a city about 100 kilometers from Beijing, a 60 square meter, two-bedroom apartment can be purchased for as little as 60,000 yuan. Dozens of properties priced around 100,000 yuan are also available. On January 15, a woman in Hegang bought a 46 square meter home for 15,000 yuan, claiming, "This is the life I want."
I bought it outright for 15,000 yuan, plus a 3,000 yuan agency fee. Houses in Hegang are so cheap that I could afford one without any trouble. Now I can live without the pressure of a mortgage. I make a living by drawing online. I feel like this is the life I've always wanted. Hegang, Heilongjiang, it's a city that keeps going viral because of its housing prices. Recently, someone spent 15,000 yuan on a house, 50,000 yuan on renovations, and hired a nanny for just 1,000 yuan. Would you envy this kind of life in Hegang? All I can say is, it depends on the location and the floor. Basically, you get what you pay for. If you don't believe me, come to Hegang and see what a 15,000 yuan house looks like. Does it meet your expectations?
While some buyers are satisfied with the low prices, others are struggling as a result. One TikToker expressed frustration, saying that even with falling prices, selling a house for a low price remains difficult. "I bought a property for over 10 million yuan, but now it's dropped to 5 million. I can't pay it off anymore. The loan is overdue, and the bank wants me to sell. But how can I sell it now? I still owe the bank 8 million. If I sell, I'd have to come up with 3 million to make up the difference. Where would I get that kind of money? I've already lost so much. I'm broke. I can't sell it, and I can only wait for it to go on auction. I've given up. Another real estate TikToker shared a story from Qixing, Zhejiang, where a property owner in Jiashan County was in tears over a 500,000 yuan drop in value. The owner hasn't even moved in yet. Housing prices in Jiaxing change every single day. Behind me is a residential complex. The owner called me last night in tears. He bought his home 2 years ago, but hasn't even moved in yet. In just 2 years, the price drop is equivalent to 5 or 6 years of his wages here. 2 years ago, he paid 17 to 18,000 yuan per square meter for this 89 square meter mid-rise unit. Now, it's dropped by over 500,000 yuan. Today, with just 100,000 yuan, you could buy a unit here. This beautiful community, with a proper Jiaxing city title, would you say the housing market here has returned to what it was 5 years ago? I'm a post-1990s generation. This is the result of 10 years of hard work, and it's all come to nothing. 3 to 5 years ago, buying a house was the ultimate accomplishment. Now it's the biggest source of pain and regret. These houses were all bought with my own hard-earned money, paid for in cash. Back then, I put down about 20 to 30% as a down payment. Now that property values have dropped by 40 to 50%, all that's left is an empty shell. The houses are worth less than my debts. If I try to sell them now, I'd have to pay the bank tens of thousands of yuan for each one. If I hold on to them, I can't keep up with the payments because my income is no longer stable, and salaries aren't what they used to be. It's exhausting. Sometimes I can't help but laugh. After 10 years of hard work, I can't help but wonder, who took advantage of me? A resident added, landlords are facing a nightmare. It's bad enough that house prices are falling, but now rents are collapsing too. Many landlords have already suffered huge losses trying to rent out properties to recover some of their money, but now even rents are shrinking. As of mid-January, data shows that housing prices continue to fall. Both prices and sales volumes are declining. According to data from CRIC, transaction volumes across first to fourth tier cities dropped across the board during the first week of 2025. A real estate TikToker in Chongqing, known as Lao Hu, said that several groups are heavily impacted by the housing market crash. He noted that among the hardest hit are people working in the real estate industry themselves. Can you believe it? The people who suffer the most from falling housing prices are not just property speculators, but those in the system. It's also us, the people working in the real estate industry, consultants, sales managers, agency owners, top sellers, so-called experts, and influencers. We're the ones who are hit the hardest. No one is spared. Take Lao Hu, for instance. He's one of us. Back when the market was booming, you could buy a unit and easily turn a profit. People in this industry know which properties are the best value, and if they had any money, they put it into real estate. But now, they don't dare to speak out. They're too ashamed to admit it. They won't be as honest as I am. If you hear a so-called influencer in Chongqing claiming they didn't buy property in Chongqing between 2018 and 2022, or if they say they sold all their properties during that time, they're either lying, broke, or just a fraud. A financial blogger has warned that 2025 could see many members of the middle class falling into poverty, urging people to exercise extreme caution when purchasing property. He explained that the government may heavily stimulate domestic demand in 2025, particularly in the real estate sector, by implementing a moderately loose monetary policy. The last time such a policy was introduced was in 2008. However, the current economic environment is very different, and real estate is no longer the thriving industry it was back then. The sector is under significant pressure. By the end of last year, Sunac had defaulted on 115.5 billion yuan in loan principal. Shurmao Group faced a liquidation application in Hong Kong due to financial troubles. Vanke, another major developer, has substantial debt to repay in 2025, including 9 billion yuan in domestic debt in the first quarter and 3.6 billion yuan in overseas debt in the second quarter. Altogether, Vanke faces 33 billion yuan in domestic debt and 21.5 billion yuan in overseas debt this year. Despite numerous stimulus policies aimed at the real estate market in 2024, developers are still under immense pressure from both sales and debt repayment. The reason is clear. The number of home buyers has dropped significantly. Those who wanted to buy have already purchased homes, while declining property prices in recent years have left many disillusioned. The once widespread belief that housing prices would only rise has been shattered. The blogger pointed out that if housing prices continue to rise across the board, it would signal an unhealthy market with potentially devastating consequences. Public data shows that in 2024, Chinese real estate companies face 482.8 billion yuan in maturing bonds, but there was still a significant shortfall in refinancing these debts. Debt rollover efforts have pushed part of this burden into 2025, with maturing debts this year expected to reach 525.7 billion yuan. Many struggling developers are focused solely on debt restructuring to survive. Another TikToker questioned why, just days before the Lunar New Year, county and town residents were not spending or preparing holiday goods. He emphasized that the growing number of middle-class families falling into poverty has become an undeniable reality.
There
are a few key reasons for this. First, wealthy people should theoretically still have money to spend, but under these economic conditions, their wealth has shrunk, and even their businesses are suffering losses. They're now in a mindset of avoiding unnecessary spending to conserve the resources. Second, the middle class is slipping into poverty. Many have lost their accumulated wealth from decades of hard work in an instant. This is their reality: bankruptcies, unpaid debts, and even fleeing from responsibilities. Third, at the grassroots level, many people can't even earn a basic wage anymore. Expenses are rising, but incomes are falling. Some can't even afford holiday costs this year. Add to that, this year has been particularly tough economically, with many people skipping Lunar New Year celebrations altogether because they can't afford them. In today's world, the festive spirit is fading, and it's all about comparisons now. This explains why even the busiest streets in small towns are empty. Unfortunately, changing this situation won't be easy. On January 15th, Zhang Qichao, chairman of Sanzang Equity Culture, stated during a speech that China's real estate market could face a complete collapse in 2025, with housing prices dropping to levels comparable to the cost of vegetables.
Since
the beginning of the year, kindergartens have faced unprecedented closures. The birth rate is dropping, and many kindergartens are struggling to enroll students. Meanwhile, authoritative institutions predict a massive wave of retirements in the next decade. This means fewer young people and more elderly to support. As the population declines, housing prices will continue to stagnate. In lower-tier cities like Hegang, where properties go for just a few hundred yuan per square meter, we'll see more cases like this. The number of houses left behind by the elderly will grow, while the younger population and demand for housing will shrink. The Hegang effect of housing markets in cities is becoming an inevitable trend. Zhang predicts that high-quality properties in prime locations within first- and second-tier cities might still appreciate in value, though they will remain unaffordable for ordinary people. However, all other properties are likely to continue losing value. He advised those holding multiple vacant properties to sell them as soon as possible. He warned that in 30 years, these properties could become worthless, equating their purchase and renovation costs to renting for 70 years. For the average person, his advice for the real estate market over the next 5 years was simple: don't buy. Data shows that after years of rapid growth, China's real estate market had accumulated up to 90 million vacant homes by 2024. Additionally, Lu Ting, chief economist at Nomura Securities, stated that there are approximately 20 million unfinished pre-sold homes in China. As the real estate crisis unfolds, more than 1,660 real estate companies have filed for bankruptcy in the past 5 years. Unable to sell properties, some Chinese developers have started using homes to settle debts. For example, last year, Greenland Holdings transferred 115 residential units to Shanghai Urban Construction Design to clear a debt of about $10 million. Shenhui Intelligent Technology took over 334 residential units and reached agreements with developers, including Country Garden, to clear debts totaling $50 million. For years, local governments in China relied heavily on land sales to support their finances, earning trillions of yuan. However, the recent real estate market collapse, coupled with massive investments in infrastructure, has left them with significant debt. According to China's Ministry of Finance, by the end of November 2024, the total outstanding debt of local governments had reached 46.5 trillion yuan. However, Goldman Sachs estimated in August 2023 that the total debt, including hidden debt from local government financing platforms, was as high as 94 trillion yuan. Local governments in China have also begun using properties to settle debts. The Wall Street Journal reported that 3 years ago, Xinjiang Dongfang Huanyu Investment Gas supplied natural gas to a state-owned financing platform group. The group failed to pay, accumulating about $25 million in debt. The largest state-owned company involved, Changji Urban Construction Investment Development, faced severe financial shortages. By June 2024, it had accumulated $1.8 billion in debt, with only $97 million in cash on hand. Eventually, a settlement was reached. Dongfang Huanyu took over 260 unfinished homes in a French-style residential project being developed by the financing group. Under the agreement, once the homes are completed, a third-party company designated by Dongfang Huanyu will sell them. If the sales revenue exceeds the gas debt, the company can keep the surplus. If not, Dongfang Huanyu will bear the losses. In another case between 2012 and 2015, the public security bureaus in Hegang County, Yuping County, and Shunan County contracted Huaping Information Technology to install a surveillance system called Skynet. Unable to pay, the bureaus accumulated over $10 million in debt. To resolve this issue, Huaping Information Technology purchased homes from local developers who then transferred the funds to the public security bureaus to pay off their debts. Effectively, Huaping Information Technology ended up receiving only properties as payment. China expert Yuan Shan pointed out that using properties to settle debts is an emergency measure for the local government debt crisis. He warned that this approach is unsustainable, especially as property values continue to plummet. Companies accepting real estate as payment risk significant losses in the long run.